What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, first round of the playoffs in the books. Some very good games to talk about, some blowouts to talk about, but some very good games. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Overall, I thought it was a pretty entertaining first weekend. Unfortunately, yeah, there were a couple games that got away. Weren't as good in the fourth quarter, second half, really, but there was absolutely a lot of compelling drama. So I think we're going to be setting up here for a great first round.
And in your case, the game you were calling, not really a good game in the second half of the first quarter. So that one got away from Memphis pretty early, but I know that's tough. But
it was weird because it was 14-11, and then they were down 30 in about 5 minutes. It was a 30-point game, and then it was at one point 57, and the record for an NBA playoff game was 58. And at that point, I'm kind of like, you know what? I hope we actually break the record. If I'm going to call a game like that, let me be part of history.
Yeah,
I'm good with
sure.
it. But they didn't. They ended up not doing that. Emptied the benches, and they kept it to just over 50. But it was that was a bloodbath. We're not going to spend too much time on that.
I was on the other side of that because the record, right, is held by the Denver Nuggets in 2009, beating the New Orleans Hornets at the time by 58, I believe. So yeah, I was rooting the other direction. I want that record to stand for a bit. But we're going to go deep on half the games, and then we'll go a little bit more shallow on the games that weren't so close. But we're going to start with the closest and arguably the best game of the entire weekend, which was the Nuggets beating the Clippers 112-110 in overtime in a defensive battle that if you just watched the first quarter, you would have thought there's no way this game will be defensive. It's going to be 140-130. That's how it was trending. But then it got tight. Then it got defensive for quarters 2, 3, and 4. And it was just a phenomenal game. I'll let you start. What's your big takeaway from this one? What stood out?
Biggest takeaway for me is where are all the Russell Westbrook haters out there, right? Because there's always a bunch of Russell Westbrook detractors, and you're 0-1 right now without Russell Westbrook. I thought Russell Westbrook was actually the most impactful player in that game in the second half of the fourth quarter into overtime. The number of plays that he was involved in that gave them a chance to win that game, that to me is what stood out more than anything. And, you look at what a great addition he's been all year. You live with some of the stuff, the decision-making, you live with some of that stuff because I've always said it, the bottom line is the guy absolutely wants to win as much or more than anybody on the floor. And he proved that. And without him and the playmaking that he came up with, whether it was offensive glass or weak side cuts or a huge corner three, like whatever they needed. And then a couple of bad decisions too. But I just thought, to me, Russell Westbrook was the takeaway from that game. Even if you go back and just listen to it with your eyes closed, no one's name got said more in the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, 5 minutes overtime, than Russell Westbrook. His name was said more than any player. Because his fingerprints were all over it. So I think that for me was what the headline was for me. Westbrook saves the day for the Nuggets because I just thought he came through in a big way.
And he saved it and almost lost it in equal measure. It just was back and forth, one direction or the other. He had some crazy plays and some crazy impressive ones. But here's where I'm going to start with it. There are players who will float in a game where they play, you look up at the box sheet and you're like, oh man, they played 25 minutes. I didn't even notice him once. That was Michael Porter in this game. He was absent. The only time you noticed him was his defense, when he was getting absolutely torched on second chance points or contains or rotations. But other than that, you did not notice him. Russell Westbrook, you notice every second he's on the floor, both good and bad. But here's my take on it. You have a new coach with the Denver Nuggets. This is the fourth game. They're now 4-0 under David Adelman. When they won the title, won it for a couple of reasons. They had Jokic and Jamal. They had connection and execution because they were all on the same wavelength and just were executing in this beautiful style of basketball. And they were tough. And that tough part doesn't get talked about. The Miami Heat won the title in went to the finals in 2023 out of toughness. They were the toughest team in the East. And even when they were outmatched, they out-toughed everybody. They couldn't out-tough Denver. Denver has not been tough all year. They've been horrible defensively all year. They were horrible defensively in the first quarter, but they found toughness in the second quarter that reminded me of the championship team in that one way, not in every way, but in that one way. And to me, that's the part that you can't predict. You did not know Denver was going to be able to get as tough as they were. And Russell Westbrook was a big part of it. He had tough plays, tough offensive rebounds, steals, deflections. That's what was so encouraging to me about what the Denver Nuggets did is they brought a championship level toughness that I had not seen for the first 82 games.
And that is what, when you talk to, Michael Malone, who I did a number of their games while Michael Malone was still the coach. Haven't done one yet with Adam in there, but that's the number one thing he talked about with Westbrook. And that extra element of toughness and competitiveness. And he's loud. And they have a bunch of nice, quiet guys, is the way he put it. Westbrook's not a quiet guy. He's not a nice guy on the court. So you feel his presence all the time. Yeah, he made some bad mistakes. I even see people in the chat here. Oh, what about the last play of regulation? Yeah, you're right. That's a he got caught up in the air. I don't know what he was trying to do. Throw the ball for the defender, get it back and shoot it. That's a terrible possession by the Nuggets. I'm not putting all that on Russell Westbrook. The whole possession was just absolutely inept. And they end up without a shot. Okay, but they still win the game, and he makes more plays in overtime. So it's like we said, even the drive he made when they could have taken that down to about a second and a half, 2 seconds before they shot the ball in overtime, and he drove in. They ended up getting bailed out with an offensive rebound by Aaron Gordon, and then they make free throws. And you're going, oh, what are you doing? He just caught the ball. There was 3 defenders at half court because they were trapping Murray and Jokic. And he caught the ball with like 15 feet of space. And I just really believe he didn't know what else to do. He thought he could get there. Making a play at the rim to him is probably the same as going to the line and having to make 2 free throws. He thought he was going to get there and get a layup. He got stopped. Offensive rebound bailed him out because it wasn't a great decision. I agree with that. I'm gonna look at this as a balance sheet, okay? And what I see on the asset side of that balance sheet, Russell Westbrook brought far more than anything that he did. It was a liability in that game. And you only played 7 people. He gave you 34 minutes off the bench. The toughness factor was there for Denver. You're right. They were tougher. And actually, I thought cleaner when they had to be, because I think Kawhi Leonard had made some plays in this game that really cost the Clippers down the stretch and hurt them. So I look at it like Denver played better when they had to, and they had guys that looked like they were desperate to win that game, and they came up with plays they had to make.
Yeah. I want to circle back on the Kawhi piece because his mistakes were very interesting, not just big, but they were interesting how they happened. But I want to stay on this one point because I've been listening. We're doing the show late enough on Monday that I've heard a lot of the takes coming through. And one of the things that I keep hearing that bothers me in a small way is people say Denver's defense was terrible in the first half, but in the second half, they got it together. Not true. They held the Clippers to 18 in the second quarter. Their defense was horrible in the first quarter. It was shockingly bad, and it was as bad as everyone says. They gave up 35 points, but they were the easiest 35 points a playoff team has ever scored in the history of the NBA. The easiest. It was that bad. But in the second quarter, they found something. Jokic checked back into the game with 8.5 minutes to go. The Clippers scored 8 points from then on. So they scored 18 in the quarter. They scored 10 in the first 3.5 minutes and 8 in the final 8.5 minutes of the second quarter. And then 22, 20. Like Denver's defense showed up after that. And I think it is because of Russell Westbrook. I don't know if MPJ can play the defense in this series the way that the Nuggets are going to need. Adelman was quick to adjust and play Westbrook. But here's the thing. At the end of the game, the Clippers said, we're just not going to guard Russ. We're going to trap the Murray-Jokic 2-man game. We're going to put 2 all the way up there, 3 really because one's guarding Jokic, 3 people up on the court, and we'll dare you to beat us with giving the ball to Russ and letting him decide. And to be honest, Denver survived it. They did not do a great job of it. They just made enough shots to get it done. But I'm curious if you think in game 2, the Nuggets now can adjust to that, knowing the ball's going to go to Russ. He's going to have a 3-on-2. Now let's build in how we operate so that we can be more effective in those moments and not just survive. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have to now be prepared for that. I was a little bit surprised at the extent to which the Clippers were selling out with like putting 3 defenders basically above the 3-point line to defend 2 guys. I was kind of surprised by that because, these are NBA players, man. You're going to give anybody that much space. I don't care who they are. Like they're going to be comfortable. But I think now you go look at the film. Yes, they're more prepared for it. Let's see now if, Tyronn Lue thinks that, hey, I'm anticipating now that they're going to make that adjustment. We're going to give them a different look in the next game because that's really clearly what they wanted to do. And sometimes it pays off because Russ is an inconsistent shooter, not necessarily the greatest decision maker at times. He still thinks he's Russell Westbrook from his MVP year that can just, go full speed at the rim and plow through anybody and still get it to go. And he's not quite that guy anymore. So they were going to force him into that situation. You're open. What are you going to do with it? And now let's see if exactly how prepared the Nuggets are for that, and if things are a little bit better for them in the first half of the game.
Yeah. Another thing that happened here, James Harden, Denver struggles in the spread pick and roll. And in the first quarter, they were able to do that. And I thought James Harden was masterful. He looked like his old self, 15 points, getting whatever he wanted. It made it look easy. He gets in foul trouble. And I don't know if it was because of the foul trouble that they went away from it. In the second quarter, I think Kawhi had 12 points in the second quarter. So he kind of got it going, but they never found their rhythm again. And Denver did a couple things to, I think, try to mitigate this. One of them was they took Jokic off of Zubats and put him on one of their wings so that there was no, you couldn't put Jokic in the pick and roll. I suspect the Clippers will be able to build a counter for that and build a system around it. But when you got late to the game, we talk about this all the time. The thing that separates the Anthony Edwards, although he was great last night, the Kawhis and KDs from the Lukas, the LeBrons, even the Jokic's is the ability to say, if you're going to double me, well, I'm going to make you pay because I'm going to bend the court and I'm going to get the ball where it went. They did it to Kawhi late in the game and he made some atrocious turnovers, didn't get shots. And I don't know if it was just a bad game or if this is a weakness to Kawhi. He wants to go one-on-one. He wants to do these things. And if you trap him and you're aggressive, he's going to have turnovers or he's going to have to reset the offense. That's what happened in this game. And I'm curious if that's what's going to happen throughout the series.
Yeah, look, he's good at it. He's not great at it. And that's the difference between the guys you described, LeBron, Luka, Jokic. Those guys are on a different level when it comes to that stuff. I think Shea's gotten a lot better at it than he used to be. Now, he's not going to necessarily, Shea's not necessarily going to make a direct pass out of that extra traffic he sees. That's going to be a lob dunk or a corner three, but he's going to get the ball out of there effectively and trust those guys because they have a lot of great decision makers in Oklahoma City. So he doesn't have to do as much. LeBron, Luka, those are guys more like, we're going to take the two, and then the pass I make is when I expect you to shoot the ball. Yep. Jokic, for the most part, does that too. He'll give it up wisely if he has to, but he's also making a pass that's probably going to be put in a place where that guy shoots it. Kawhi Leonard is good at that. He's not great at that. He's not going to beat you that way. And I think that the Denver Nuggets know that. And look, there was even plays he didn't make without a double team. The turnover he had in front of their own bench when he was being guarded one-on-one by Murray, and he held the ball like forever, and then he kind of had it out in one hand out to the side of his body. He was right against the sideline. You remember that play? Murray tips the ball and it goes off his hip.
Yep.
And it's that's a horrific turnover to have. You're one-on-one. You've got to be able to protect the ball better than that a guy can't get a clean strip on you in a one-on-one situation from a triple threat. And he did. And it was a big, big turnover in the game. They had another big turnover inbounding the ball when Russell Westbrook comes back there and he and Harden deflected at the same time. Harden's hand hits it last and Denver ends up with the basketball. These are big plays, man, in a game that you could tell was going to be decided by like one possession. Yep. You could see that coming from the middle of the fourth quarter on. You can't make those turnovers. He had another one, or Kawhi, where he gets an offensive rebound and just sort of stumbles out of bounds on the baseline because he wanted a call. And he didn't give it to him. It was Denver's ball. So I just don't think, relative to how we've seen Kawhi Leonard close out games when he's at his best, and he's had an incredible 2 months. He looks very similar physically to the way he did when he won a championship in Toronto. But some of those decisions and some of the plays that did not go his way late were big plays in the game.
And it's not even just about the skip pass, making it to the open guy so you don't have to swing it. It's also about bending the defense. You're going to put two on ball. Well, let me drag you so far away that your recovery time now is the furthest it can be. And not only that, the great players, the Lukas, the Jokic's, the LeBrons, they also are dragging the help out. And they're waiting for the exact moment when the help is furthest so the skip pass goes. And not only does he not have it, but I thought the team, there's one play in particular, it's fourth quarter. It was a turnover by Kawhi where I think it was Derrick Jones, but it might have been Batum, flashes. And he flashed to open space and then almost out of open space. So Kawhi tries to hit him and he throws it too far. Both guys made an error. Kawhi on the pass, but also the flash was not there. And because that's not a muscle the Clippers need very often. They play a different brand, but the playoffs called for it and they were a little out of sync. So now the question becomes, how much are they capable of building that in short order? And how much can Denver sort of adjust to what they do? But this one, the last piece of this that we haven't talked about is Aaron Gordon. He was dominant, physically dominant. I thought he guarded Kawhi Leonard incredibly well. And for all the plays Russell Westbrook made in the clutch, Aaron Gordon matched him with big time second chance points and big time defensive plays. He might be the true X factor in the series, because when he plays like that, Kawhi gets chopped off just a little bit, and Denver has another scorer that can put up 30 points as he did in this one.
Yeah, so you just look at, I tend to look at going forward in a series. I kind of look at, okay, who didn't really perform as well as they normally do in game one? And because you kind of think to yourself, okay, maybe you can expect that in game two. Michael Porter Jr. would be a great example of that. I look at that. I look at Aaron Gordon, the game that he had, to me, 25 points, 8 boards. Like, that wasn't anything I was like, okay, Aaron Gordon was superhuman. He's done this for them in the postseason in big moments. I think you're right. I think Aaron Gordon might be the single biggest X factor in this series. If he has average to below average games, Denver is going to have a hard time winning those, I believe. When he plays as well as he did yesterday, even despite the fact that Michael Porter Jr. was non-existent in the game, you can see what happens. As long as you get that kind of an effort and contribution out of Russell Westbrook. Jamal Murray, another guy, he didn't shoot very well, but you felt his presence. I felt his aggressiveness. He made some big shots when he had to. So I felt him in the game. He just didn't have a very good shooting game. I think he'd like to have some of those back. Christian Brown was a little bit quiet. It felt like he didn't get as many opportunities in the open floor than he normally does. And that's really why I think we didn't feel him. But he hit an enormous three as well. Maybe, you could say arguably the biggest shot of the game, really.
Yep.
So he had a big moment despite the fact that he was a little bit quiet. So I think there's more there for Denver. Michael Porter Jr., Christian Brown in particular. I think there could be more. Now, for the Clippers side, I could probably say that about Norman Powell. I felt like he was quiet. This is a guy that averaged like 23 points a game for them. Leading scorer. He didn't really ever string together touches or shots or opportunities. So I think there could be more there for him. And then I think just Kawhi in the fourth quarter was not nearly as good as you need him to be. He had 14 points in the first half, I believe, right? He only had 7 points in the second half. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, he's got to be the guy that's the differentiating factor for the Clippers if they get into a tight game again in the fourth quarter, because I really didn't feel that was the case in this one.
And 12 of those points, by the way, in the second quarter. So they all came, and I think most of them in that first 3-minute stint of the second quarter. So almost all of his scoring came in this tiny little pocket, which is, I think, further concerning if you're the Clippers. But on the Harden point and on the Aaron Gordon point, one of the reasons that Aaron Gordon got going in this game was because the Clippers said James Harden was going to guard him. And I think they were trying to lure, or you have to hide him somewhere. And I think they thought, well, Denver, if they post up AG a bunch, maybe that's a win for us, because as good as AG is, he's not going to beat you on post-ups. Denver was very smart. They posted him up in transition when they could get deep steals, and they got a couple buckets out of it that way. They drew fouls on him because Harden now has to go up against somebody stronger than him. But number two, they didn't force the post. They ran a lot of Aaron Gordon, Jokic two-man game. So it's like, if Harden's on Aaron Gordon, let's make him guard pick and rolls inside the three-point line, often at the block, like really deep pick and rolls. And Harden struggles at that. It put him in a compromised spot. So now you look at it and say, are the Clippers going to adjust and try to keep Harden off of Aaron Gordon? Or are they going to try to just like, oh, okay, we can do this, we just have to be better? I'm not sure I know the answer to that, because I think that's a bad matchup for Harden defensively.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I this is going to be a fascinating chess match. And look, you got a coach, going through this for the first time as a head coach. So that's like a whole nother factor for them. He looks very comfortable in his own skin. He just looked comfortable when he speaks. He's very confident. You can see that. I guess this team believes in him. But now is when it begins. Going into the first game, you have an idea how you want to attack things. You got some cool ideas about rotational stuff and defensive wrinkles and some offensive wrinkles. Now is when it really begins. The coaching begins. Game by game, adjusting to what happened in the previous game, what happens in the totality of the series. By the time you get to game 5 and 6, this is where, the top coaches in this league, this is why they get paid big bucks, is for the kind of decisions and adjustments that get made in the playoffs that you don't have to make in the regular season. So that's another factor going forward. Let's see how it plays out.
It was a great game. They play again tonight. I expect it to be another great game, albeit different. This one will take a different personality. And these two teams to me are interesting in how they mirror each other in different ways. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a long series, and it was a good one. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, though, the Warriors get a statement win against the Rockets, holding them to 85 points, and the Wolves get a statement win over the Lakers, holding them to 95 points. We'll get to both of those games on the other side. First, get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. I just made an order, 2 different pairs of navigators I just ordered for this season, for the spring, summer here. And the box that it got delivered in had some kind of like damage to it. And so I wrote them. They sent me in a pair immediately. No questions asked. They said, hey, sorry about that. Here you go. Anything else you need. Incredible customer service. You don't get that anywhere else. This is a personal testimony. It just happened. But they have great styles, great everything you could want, every different type of sunglass you want. And it's super easy. And like I said, companies that have good customer service don't make you jump through hoops. I always appreciate it. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to tell you guys about Timeline. The cells in our bodies are the building blocks of life. Timeline is a supplement that works with those cells to give you more energy, feel stronger during workouts, and preserve health and mobility as you start to age. Their patented ingredient is MitoPure, a postbiotic nutrient that clears our dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cells' battery packs. I'm reading this off a sheet. I am not a scientist, but we know these things to be true because they have been clinically tried to be true. MitoPure is the only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. That's a huge win. So get ready to be your best, most energized, most revitalized you. Go to Timeline, and they're giving you 10% off of your order of MitoPure. That's timeline.com/all-NBA today to get started. Timeline.com/all-NBA, or check out the description in this show. Back here, segment 2, me and Tim Legler breaking down all of the games that happened. We're going to try to make it through all 8 of them. And so we'll move on now to the Warriors and the Rockets. Warriors get the win 95-85. This game didn't feel as close as it finished, 10 points. Steph Curry had some big time shot making, 5 of 9 from 3. And they were able to kind of put the clamps on. There was a couple moments where they tripped up, especially in the third quarter, where they kind of made this a game again. But I thought the defensive performance that Golden State put on in this one was one of the more impressive things I saw this entire weekend.
Defense was great. You also had, and this is where I scratched my head when I was listening to the Turner pregame show. All right, so I'm watching that show, and both, I think Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley for sure, I don't know about Shaq, he might have, said that the Rockets have more talent. And they thought the Rockets were going to win the series. How in the world could you say Rockets have more talent when the Warriors have by far the 2 best players in the series? I mean, it's not even close. You can't get anybody in the same conversation with those guys for the Rockets. Now, you might talk about the totality of like a lot of athletes, and they've got some young guys that are, pretty nice players. There are 2 guys on the other team that not only are the 2 best players in the series by far, they also have like 300 playoff games between them. I mean, and as the main guy on those teams. So it's not like they were just along for the ride on some deep playoff runs. You're talking about 2 guys that have driven offenses that have, in Curry's case, won championships, in Jimmy Butler's case, been to finals and had other deep playoff runs where he was the main guy. So that's the difference in the game, Adam. Those 2 guys shot 22 for 38 from the field, okay, in a game in which everybody struggled offensively besides those 2 guys. So the rest of the game, 48 for 125. That's what everybody else who was on the court shot in that game for both teams. Those 2 guys, 22 for 38. And Steph Curry, 3 bailout threes at the end of the shot clock that were ridiculous shots that are just absolute demoralizing, back-breaking gut punches. And he hit 3 of them in the same game. To me, you're right. The Warriors defense was great, but I thought the real headline, the difference is their 2 best players were the only 2 guys on the court that operated comfortably offensively because they're that much better than everybody else on the floor. And they both were able to do their thing and get a very, very tough, hard fought, physical game in a game one on the road and get home court advantage for the time being. So that to me was the difference. Those two guys played with such poise, confidence, greatness. Nobody else on the floor had it except for Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler.
And all of the shots you're talking about Steph hitting, because those are the most back-breaking types when you defend for 20 seconds really well, and Steph catches it on the move and goes up for it. There's nothing in sports, nothing in basketball, in my opinion, more demoralizing than that. And yet you knew they were in. Like the last one he took where he's kind of moving to his right, not even set, gets it up. I was watching with a buddy who was like, oh my God, before the shot even left his hands, he was saying that because you just knew. You're like, I don't know how, but he's somehow balanced to get this shot off. And yeah, you're right. That is the difference. And on the other side, Fred VanVleet, 4 of 19, Jalen Green, 3 of 15. I thought Jalen Green was a little wild. You worry about Jalen Green because at his best, he looks great. And at his worst, he's forcing it. Game one of the playoffs, and he was the bad version. He was forcing some crazy decisions.
So here's what I don't know. And we're going to find out in game two because he was absolutely awful and he didn't look comfortable at all. So the question is, was that simply a matter of first time going through it? You know, they haven't played a home playoff game in that building since before COVID. So these guys don't know what that feels like, but you play a home playoff game, and you got the Warriors in town. It'd be the equivalent of saying if they had the Lakers, one of those two teams, right? These superstar iconic players, championship type players coming into your building for the first game of the playoffs. You got this young team. I felt like it was nerves. I don't think he was processing the game very well. He definitely started getting tight and pressing. So the question is that going to be a series issue or is that a game issue that he can shake off? Now, Fred VanVleet, there's no excuse for that with him. He has made deep playoff runs. He has won a championship as a key member of the Toronto Raptors. So he and made a ton of big shots for them in that entire postseason run that year. So it's not like he, again, was just out on the floor, like getting some minutes. He was a major factor for the Raptors. So you think that doesn't explain him going 4 for 19. I'd put that more on the Warriors defense. Jalen Green, I don't know. We're not going to know that until game two. Let's see how he recovers because he's a much better offensive player than he showed in game one. And, you know, Warriors eke this game out with Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet playing that way. That's if I'm Ime Udoka, that's my message to my team. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, okay, look, man, it was a one possession game with a few minutes left in the game. And we had our starting backcourt went 7 for 34 and 2 of 17 from the three. That's not happening again. Let's play the same defense we played. Guys will be better offensively. Like that, if I'm Ime Udoka, that's what I'm selling to my team.
But I give the Warriors credit because I think their defense is incredible. But I also think that Jalen Green has something he has to learn that you don't get to learn it anywhere else but in the playoffs or in the clutch of regular season games, as seldom as those come, which is you don't get to win the way you want. You don't get the shots you want. You don't get to pick always that I am going to do this and this is how we're going to win. Sometimes the defense dictates it, but I don't think he accepts that. And that's my biggest fear whenever I watch him is you see him color outside the line sometimes trying to force his way to do the thing he wants. And in this game, I just thought he played into their hands. And he played in the way that if you are a Jalen Green doubter, you go, that's the guy. He has to learn that sometimes the right play is just drawing the defense out and getting it somewhere else. And he did not want to do that. He wanted to barrel to the rim and try one of the best defenses in the NBA, and it did not work. And more importantly, for the team as a whole, Houston only made 6 3-pointers. Not going to win in the playoffs that way. They had 4 fast break points. Not going to win. They had 22 second chance points, which is the one area they need extra points and extra possessions. That's the one thing they did well. But those other numbers, this is why you fear them. They rely on fast breaks and they're going to need to make threes. And they're not always the most consistent 3-point shooting team.
What they have to do to win this series, they have to turn a Golden State over and run.
Yeah.
Because Golden State's half-court defense is exceptional. Houston is not a very good half-court 3-point shooting team. So you got to get up and down the floor. 4 fast break points, only 11 forced turnovers. That number's got to go up. and they've got to convert even more. Look, you gave a big number on the offensive glass. They had 22 offensive rebounds. I mean, that's probably the one thing that's concerning Steve Kerr, because he said it, like, they're gonna get offensive rebounds. There's not much we can do. We're not gonna grow overnight. We're not gonna get stronger. This is what they do. They do it at a high level. They're crashing constantly. They're gonna get their share. He never would have expected them to get 22. So you get 22 offensive rebounds and you still only score 85 points. That is indicative of how bad their shooting was in this game. It remains to be seen how much better those guys can be. Van Vliet and Green, you would just expect by sheer math, they've got to be much better in game 2 than they were in game 1. I feel like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, I mean, that's about as good as they can play, I think, on a nightly basis in this series. They were both great in game 1. Even if they play great every night, it's going to look a lot like it did in game 1. So Houston is the team that's got to look at their roster to go, man, we need more out of 4 or 5 different guys, because that's not what I watched all season. And that's where it's going to come from. Look, they're going to turn game 2 into a fight from the beginning. And this was a very physical game. I really enjoyed watching it, man, but it's going to be even more physical beginning. I got one more point on the physicality. Here's what I noticed. Do you remember the game at the end of this regular season when they played and they held Curry to 3 points?
Yep.
Okay. So in that game, and I watched that entire game, I watched it live, and it wasn't like Curry was just off. They were holding, grabbing, topsiding him. They were so physical with him trying to get open in the first place. Forget once he caught the ball, he wasn't even catching the ball. Here's what I noticed. And he never got rolling, and they were talking to him, and Udoka was talking to Curry, leaving the court at halftime. They thought, oh, man, we got you. You ain't got it for us tonight. You know what I noticed in this game? Early was kind of like that. Curry, because he's such a great player, his first 4 baskets were cuts or drives off of just enormous pressure. And they were like floaters and like really tough running shots. But he had 4 field goals, 8 points. But it seemed to me, once he started scoring a little bit, it almost was like Houston became a little bit like deferential to Steph Curry.
Ooh.
When they had him all bottled up in that game at the end of the regular season, they were talking to him the whole time, staring at him, chesting him up when the ball was out of bounds. I didn't see any of that after he started getting going. Next thing you know, he's juking guys to get open and catch it. He's free. He's shaking guys off the dribble. He's coming off ball screens with space. He didn't get any of that in that game in the regular season. In fact, the other 2 games in the regular season, they did a great job on him as well. Almost looked like they got a little bit back on their heels in all of this guy once he got it going. So let's see if they can find that intensity and bullying swagger that they have to play with against that particular player. I'm really excited to watch that in the next game.
It's a great point. And I think you're 100% right. They were feeling really good about the performance they put up at the end of the season against him, and they're probably feeling significantly worse right now. And part of what you're getting at here is that the Rockets can't bully the Warriors. The Rockets are also tough, and they've relied on that toughness and physicality for the regular season to get them a 2 seed. But when you meet a team that can overcome that, it's like, okay, well, our right hook doesn't work the way I thought. This is my knockout punch, and it's not working tonight. Where do we go? That's one of the questions. The last one I have for you, though, is they did get 22 offensive rebounds, and they did it behind their double big lineup, but they didn't go to it as much as I thought they would. And they went away from it a little bit early. I think they can try to stop Curry a little bit more than they did. I think Fred VanVleet can make more shots than he did. And I am curious if they say, you know what, let's just go to that 2 big lineup even more, give it another 7 or 8 minutes in game 2. What do you think of that last piece there, the double bigs?
It was effective against them in the regular season. It was effective against a lot of teams in the regular season down the stretch once Steven Adams got healthy. And I think that you're right. I think that is something that you might see more of in the next game. Steven Adams was like, they just kept saying his name over and over again because every time you looked up, he had another offensive rebound. He had 12 boards in 20 minutes, man. 5 of them on the offensive glass. He was an absolute factor in the game. They just couldn't convert anything. They missed so many shots at the rim. And their 3-point looks, I didn't think were great throughout the game because Golden State's really good at collapsing on the paint and closing out hard. This, to me, is very simple. Can Houston play better offensively than they did? Like, we don't know to what extent this was nerves, being overwhelmed, Warriors defense, combination of all of it. Let's see. Let's see. The series, though, clearly has begun now for Golden State.
Yeah.
I really believe they looked at game one and said, this is a game we can absolutely get. They're not used to what this is going to feel like. They'll feel a lot more comfortable probably in game two. They've gotten one under their belt. I would expect Jalen Green to bounce back. I think Van Vliet's going to bounce back. I think those guys do play a lot better. So that's why Golden State, you need a split. You got to win one road game to get home court back. Doesn't matter which one. They wanted the first one. You could tell. And you know what I was thinking, Adam, during this game? This is crazy. How slim the margin is in this league. Remember the play-in game? Memphis almost won that game. If Memphis wins that game, they couldn't even get the ball in down 3 with 6 seconds to go, right? They get a 5-second violation. Who knows? Who knows? But if you win the game, you're playing the Rockets instead of what happened to Memphis on Sunday, which I was witness to, which was, the Easter massacre. That's really what it felt like. Like that they had no business being on the floor with Oklahoma City. They could have been playing Houston later that night if they had won that game. Right. So it's crazy what that did to everything. And then they go in and have to play this Oklahoma City team sitting there for 12 days. That was like throwing a steak to a lion. That's what that felt like.
It really was. We'll get to that in a second, probably for very briefly. But the last thing I wanted to note here, just because you were talking about 22 offensive rebounds, but only 22 second chance points, which is a low number. Legs, they had a 24-second violation on an offensive rebound. That almost never happens. If you get an offensive rebound and kick it out, somebody's open quick. They had a 24-second violation just to show you how locked in Golden State was in this one. Impressive for Golden State. They feel it. After the game, they talked about their one third quarter slip. I think they feel this should have been a blowout, but they let it get back. I kind of agree with them. I think they control this series, and I'm curious to see what happens next. Let's go to the next one, though, because we got to keep it moving. The Wolves blow out the Lakers in the second most dominant game of the weekend. Wolves 117, Lakers 95. Jaden McDaniels was 11 of 13 for 25 points, and the Wolves shot 21 of 42 from the three-point line. That's the top-level reason why they won. But if you watch the game, it sure felt like the Wolves were the better team if you didn't know anything else. What did you see from this one?
Well, one thing that I noticed leading up to this game, I've never heard J.J. Redick talk as glowingly about a team as he did about this team. And it was every day. He was like, it was crazy because that's, JJ, he'll give like one little short answer about the other team. Yeah, they're a good team, solid team, but it's about us, whatever. He kept talking about it. And it was almost like, to me, I was like, man, he's really concerned about this matchup. It sounds like to me. Now I know why. You're right. The story of the game is the 3-point shooting. And it was everybody and everywhere. Julius Randle, you're going to live with him taking threes. He goes 4 for 6. Anthony Edwards, he's 4 for 9. That's like an average night for him. He's going to take a lot. He's going to make a lot. Jaden McDaniels goes 3 for 3, gives you 25 points. There's no way JJ Redick and that coaching staff is accounting for that when they're thinking about a game plan and what they're trying to accomplish. Naz Reid, 6 for 9, very capable. The guy can heat up. He gets a lot of clean looks because, he's playing as a big that far out on the court, and he loves the corner shot. Lakers couldn't get to him. The 3-point shooting margin was the difference in the game. I mean, that's a plus 18. And it wasn't like the Lakers were awful. They made 15, shot 37%. That's not a terrible night in the NBA. They just were overwhelmed by the Timberwolves 3-point shooting display. That they had no answer for it. Yeah. The absolute number one thing you're looking for in game two, what adjustments do you make to defend the 3-point line better? That's going to be a lot of my first half analysis of game two is what are they doing differently to take away some of these looks?
And then hopefully get out in transition. They got outscored in fast break points 25-6. So that was one margin. Like Minnesota, like Golden State, half court defense, they're very good. They're very competent. So you have to get out in transition. And when you're giving up 3-pointers, those are all transition opportunities if you get stops. If they're not, obviously you're setting your defense and you're down 3 points. But here's what really comes down to for me. Austin Reaves had 16 points. LeBron James had 19. Those two have been phenomenal for a long time, for most of if not all of the year. Minnesota is so physical. Their defense is designed for the playoffs. In the regular season, they get into foul trouble. You call this that. In the playoffs, you allow a little bit more. They're super athletic, super long, super physical defensively. And I don't know if they're going to defend as well as they did in this game, every single one, but I don't think it's going to be far off. And I've seen this from Minnesota. The Lakers, are they athletic enough? And are those two guys in particular? LeBron's older. I mean, he still has it in him, but does he have it for 48 minutes? And then Austin Reaves, is this something that can bother him? I just thought those two guys looked pedestrian in this one, and I thought it was because of the length and physicality of Minnesota.
Well, here's what I'll say to you. The game got away from them in the second quarter. Now let's look at what happened in the second quarter. Luka Doncic dominated them in the first quarter.
Yep.
Dominated them. And just like last year, going into that series against Minnesota, I said at the time, he's not bothered by length, quickness, stuff. He's not bothered by that. He's not bothered by anything really defensively, but physical strength. Like a guy like Dort has a better chance. He doesn't care about the length of a Jaden McDaniels, the quickness of an Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They mean nothing to Luka Doncic because he's playing at his own speed with incredible strength. So that he just manipulates your athleticism against you, and then he shoots the ball when he wants to. He controlled the first quarter. At the end of that quarter, they were up 7. That quarter was all Luka Doncic. He goes to the bench. First half of the second quarter, their offense completely went off the rails with him off the floor. So to your point, that defense, that did have an effect on LeBron and Austin Reaves. It didn't affect Luka. And then when Luka came back in the game, he was relegated to like standing around on the wing. They weren't running through him initially. Really, the entire quarter, Luka didn't really get a lot of opportunities after that dominant first quarter. So what happens in the second quarter? They got outscored 38-20. Now, look, they also couldn't guard him in that quarter. But for me, it was about their offense stalling out because Luka was the one guy that was doing whatever he wanted to those guys. And so I'm really curious to see what that looks like going forward. Because when they go look at the film, they're going to see that. Now, look, he had some moments in the second half. He never really got it going. They were playing from behind the whole time. It felt different. When he was controlling the game at the beginning, it felt like, wow, Luka's going to have a monster night, and he's going to control this game. And Minnesota's going to not have any effect on him. It got away from them when he wasn't the guy that was controlling the offense. So I want to see what happens in game 2.
Yeah, I do as well. And we have to keep it moving. So I just want to ask you one question on this series, and then we'll move on. I think the Lakers have more pressure on them in game 2 than anybody else in the playoffs because they're at home court and you're down 0-1. You can't go 0-2 at home. You could say the same about Houston, but also because at least Houston was close in their game of this or that. The Lakers look like they were unprepared. They look like they were in second gear. They just looked out athletic, outclassed everything else. And yes, Minnesota made shots. But if I'm the Lakers, there's not a lot of positive I take of like, well, we did this and we're going to have to lean on it more. I look at that and say, we got beaten every facet. And now we're down 0-1 and we have one more home game before we go on the road. So I think they have the most pressure. What do you think?
You're 100% right. Because when you look at these series, look at the home teams. Okay. I think 2 home teams lost.
Them and Houston.
Houston and the Lakers. There's a lot of people that don't think Houston is favored to win that series, right?
Including
a
Vegas.
lot of people. So now there's a lot of pressure on them. If in terms of if you want to have a chance of winning the series, you've got to win game 2 for Houston. But at the same time, it's not like earth shattering to anybody if they were not to win that series. You look at the Lakers, and Minnesota's a very, very good team, but because of who's on that team, the Lakers, and you ended up a 3 seed, only 2 home teams lost. So that means those are the only 2 teams that you could really look at and say there's a ton of pressure on you because you're at home and you've already lost one. So it really comes down to those 2, and there's no question there's more on the Lakers than the Houston Rockets. So it was kind of awe-inspiring what Minnesota did to them and how easily they did it in the second half. Even after LA made a little bit of a run, Minnesota came out of a timeout and squashed that rebellion so quickly. and now the Lakers just are kind of stunned leaving the court. So we're going to see, man, what the fight back is. One thing shocked me, last comment on this game. One thing shocked me about it all. JJ Redick saying after the game, he didn't think they were ready for the competitiveness of the playoffs. I was like, what? You got Luka Doncic and LeBron James on that team? How's that possible? So I think it was almost a way for him to like, we're going to chalk it up to that. We weren't as intense as we need to be. It's easier to think that than to think, holy hell, this team is better than us, right? So let's see what their response is going to be in game 2 because I agree with you. There's the series and their season is on the line.
Yeah. Last game we're going to kind of go a little deep on here is the Knicks getting the win 123-112 over the Pistons, and they did it behind a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter. The Pistons, I thought, did a great job in this game for their first playoff game, basically, with this group. Their first playoff game, they did a great job all the way up until they didn't. What happened in that collapse?
Man, oh man. The youth, I think, showed itself. They were in control. I was watching that game and amazed by the way they had played to that point. They're up
Same.
8 points. It's 98-90 with 9 minutes left when Dennis Schroeder scored. And take a look at their possessions after that. They had some really tough ones. Possessions with turnovers. They had some clean looks. Like Tim Hardaway had 2 on the same possession. He missed a pull-up 15-footer uncontested. They got an offensive rebound, kicked it out to him for an uncontested 3, and he missed it. And he played well, but that was a big moment. I felt like one of those had to go to stop that run. You just needed one basket. Sometimes you just need the one basket, man, to get your, like, it's almost like somebody snapping a finger in front of you like a hypnotist. Like, wake up. We scored. Okay, let's stop this run. That run felt enormous to them. The weight of that, they collapsed under it because they're a young team. And Cade Cunningham's got to be a lot better in game 2. For them to even be in that position, he's going to have to be. And if they are in that position, Cade Cunningham has to prove that he is the all-league caliber player that a lot of people are going to vote him to be, because I didn't feel like he was in this game.
On the other side, was there one player for the Knicks that you thought was especially impactful here?
I'm looking at because I'm replaying the game in my mind now as I look at this. Cameron Payne, what he did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great call.
I mean, come on, man. Like, that was probably the most impactful reserve minutes in the entire first 2 days of the playoffs. They don't win the game without Cameron Payne going off. He has like his own little mini run that right at that time we're talking about. And he took his game to a level that I don't think anybody thought he could get to exactly when they had to have it. So I would say, yeah, Cameron Payne, he probably gets the reserve, the best reserve of the weekend award, because those are 14 points they don't win the game without.
Yeah. Him or Russell Westbrook, also a reserve, and when Russ is also probably in this mix. But we talked about him already. That game is also tonight. So Denver Clippers, great game. Knicks Pistons, great game. We have 2 really good ones. Tomorrow's show is going to be phenomenal. And just so everybody knows, we have limited time to do the show. So some of these teams are getting a shorter analysis than others, but we will, as this series goes on and there's fewer games, we will obviously go deep on every single one. But we're going to speed run through the rest of this here, Legs, because we got about 7 minutes. The game you called. You're the luckiest guy on earth, man. Every time you get a game, you just can pencil it in for a 50-point blowout, at least over the last 2 weeks or so. So my only question here, the Thunder looked incredible. I mean, honestly, they looked incredible in every way. I know Thunder fans get mad because we don't talk about them a lot. They win by 50. Was there anything you saw when you got to the arena and you hear people and you talk to people? Was there anything that prepared you and made you think this game might not be close?
I knew it wasn't going to be close going in, my own feeling, because the one thing about Oklahoma City, and we talked to Mark Daigneault before the game, and we talked about the layoff they had. These guys hadn't played a meaningful game, their main guys, since April 8th. Okay, they had 12 days without a competitive basketball game to play. So he said he'd much rather have that than the alternative, and I see why. A defense like this with fresh legs across the board, I had a feeling it was going to go. Now, when I say blowout, Adam, I'm thinking 25, okay? They beat them in the regular season all 4 times, and in each of those games, they had a 20-point lead at some point, okay? So the numbers don't add up. They've beaten them 9 straight times coming into the game. They're sitting there waiting for them. They're better than they've been in the last couple of years. I'm like, yeah, this adds up to a 25-point loss. It shouldn't add up to a team being down 57 points in the third quarter. All right.
It's crazy.
So
man.
It's absurd. So it was a combination of Oklahoma City, the best team in the NBA, playing their best at the exact same time. the Memphis Grizzlies wanted no part of this fight. No part
Yeah.
of it. They let go. You know, letting go of the rope. They never even got a grip on the rope. Okay.
Once it was gone, it was gone.
brutal. It was brutal. It was the only way to describe it. My partner Dave Pash said it in the second quarter. If this were a fight, they'd stop it.
Yep. They'd thrown in the towel in the second quarter. They would have thrown it in. We got to move on. We're wrong. It wasn't Russell Westbrook. It wasn't Campaign. The reserve of the weekend is Ty Jerome, because it was him that led the Cavs. Right?
True.
Like, I mean, we forgot as soon as I get to this. I'm like, oh, that's right.
I forgot about Ty
points.
Jerome. Yeah, you're right. My mistake. Ty Jerome would be the top of the list.
5 of 8 from 3, 28 points, more than half of those in the fourth quarter alone. I think I have it written down here, 16 in the fourth. He was incredible, but this game was closer than I expected it to be. It looks like it wasn't, but this was actually a pretty close game, Legs. What did you take away from it?
It was a close game until the Cavaliers had to get really serious, and then they were pulled away. But you're right.
Okay.
I mean, it's an 8-point game, early fourth quarter. And at some point, you just know in this series, I mean, I can't imagine. I personally think it's going to be a sweep. There's no way the Heat are winning more than one game. So because of the depth of the Cavaliers, they've got too many guys that can hurt you. Their starting five is too good on both ends of the floor. They've got great chemistry. It's going to be just an uphill battle the entire time for the Heat. They gave him everything they could. They threw a lot of stuff at Tyler Hero to limit him, and it worked. Ultimately, they're going to make other guys beat them, and they don't think Miami's got the personnel to do it, and neither do I. So eventually, no matter how these games go, the Cavs are going to wear them down, and they're going to eventually go on a run that they need to. Maybe some games that's the second quarter or third. In this case, it was the fourth quarter.
My only other note from this one is Tyler Hero has a tough job. This is a tough matchup for him personally. They attacked him a lot. They have the ability to do it. Spread pick and roll. You're going to have to get out. But they were also creative in how they did it, running him through actions and then making him sit up top and guard through screens. It's just, I don't think he's capable of handling that. So if I look at this series, we knew it would be tough. It's a 1-8 matchup, but I also look at it and say, Cleveland has something they can get to against Miami very easily and very repeatable. And I'm not sure there's anything Miami can do outside of junk zones and, weird defenses. But to me, I don't think this is going to be the toughest offensive series for the Cavs. I think they'll get what they want easily.
There are two series in the postseason that my mindset is just please get me to the next round. And that is this series you're talking about right now and the Oklahoma City series. The other ones have a lot of compelling storylines for me. I'm very interested in all of those. These two, I think for most people, can't get over fast enough.
Well, the compelling storyline of the Boston Magic one here is kind of easy. The Orlando Magic are going to try to limit the three-point shots. They're the best team in the NBA at limiting three-point shots. The Celtics are the best at taking them. They completed that mission. Success. They held them to just 37 threes, which is the sixth fewest, I believe, or fourth or fifth or sixth fewest that they got the entire year. Mission accomplished. And then on the other side, the Celtics are going to try to limit the Magic's points in the paint because they can't shoot. Well, only 28 points in the paint, mission accomplished. So both of them accomplished their defensive goals, but Boston's just a lot better, and so this game wasn't close.
Yeah, no, it wasn't close. Derrick White was the difference. I mean, he went off 30 points, bombed him out for the three-point line. It's a fascinating contrast in styles because of what you said. Boston, on average, taking 46, 47 threes a night. Orlando only allows 31 taken a night. Like, no one limits attempts the way they do. That's the whole question. Which one's going to win out? Boston didn't take as many as they normally do, but they still shot a really good percentage. That was the key to this, and you didn't really get any help. Their entire roster outside of their top two guys. Banchero and Wagner were both pretty damn good in this game. They got nothing from anyone else. Remember the play-in game? Where's Cole Anthony and Anthony Black and these guys that have to step up and have big games to supplement their offense? Because if they don't, they're going to be under 90 the whole series. So that's what it comes down to. Defensively, you did absolutely enough to win the game if you're Orlando. You held them to 103 points. They took 10 less threes than they normally do. You did everything you had to. Your offense let you down, which is exactly what I thought would happen going into the series. So let's see if some of these other guys can help out in any kind of way. Anthony Black, 1 for 4. Cole Anthony, 1 for 3. Those guys had like 50 points plus in a play-in game. So I know it's the Celtics, but my point is they've got to help the Stars.
Yeah. Last game here, Pacers beat the Bucks 117-98 in what was a beatdown. almost a humiliating one, to be honest with you. The Pacers were getting what they want. I just have 2 shout outs. Pascal Siakam was incredible on both ends of the floor. He was 5 of 10 on jumpers, including 3 of 6 from 3 in this one. And then on the Bucks side, this game, I hate to say it, it felt like Giannis doing, a man alone, because you had the stat line of the weekend, Legs. Kyle Kuzma in 22 minutes, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. And that to me is like, I can describe the whole thing. Pacers did a great job. Siakam was incredible. Nembhard, role players showed up. And on the other side, Giannis looked like a guy that had nobody to have his back.
Gary Trent and AJ Green were the only other 2 guys that really showed up at all. Now,
Even and listen, just a window.
Without Damian Lillard, they're not winning the series. So the question becomes, when are we going to see him? They're talking about game 2 or game 3. And you saw him and Halliburton getting into it. Damian Lillard in street clothes and woofing at Halliburton, which tells you that he probably is really chomping at the bit to get out there. He's very close. When are they going to make that happen? It's going to be one of those 2 games. They don't have a chance without him. And look, even with him, who knows? He's missed so much time. Where's his conditioning? Where's his rhythm on his shot? Because without him being close to regular season normal Damian Lillard production, Bucks don't have a chance in this series. I picked the Pacers to win this series. I probably would have picked them even if Damian Lillard was healthy, because I'm one of those guys always kind of leaning toward a sneaky Indiana team. Like, they're tough to play against. And you saw all of that on display in this first game. And now it's up to Lillard. How much of a difference can he tip it in Milwaukee's favor? If not, it might be a short 5-game series.
That series deserves a longer conversation, but we'll get to it here in games 2 and 3. And as that series evolves, Legs, I think you got to go, because you got a production meeting here. We have 5 super chats, but I can read them after you duck here. Any final thoughts?
That. Yeah, I got to get that one in. We got an ESPN Zoom talking about some playoff coverage. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's. Going to be awesome, man. I'm so glad I'm going to be home. I've been going on the road for a week. I'm home finally on my sofa, just watching games tonight. I can't wait.
Tomorrow's show should be fantastic. Can't wait for it. Good luck, Legs. Let's close out the show here, James. Let's close it out with our super chats. You can go ahead and one screen it here. What do we have here? What were the people saying? James is pulling all the levers and buttons right now. Mogi says, appreciate you guys. All right, that was a nice one. I appreciate you, man. We appreciate everybody who's watching. By the way, make sure that you are subscribed. You're not going to win the playoffs. We do this all year long. Playoff or regular season games, it's fun to get Legs' deep dive take. We go back and forth. We have a good time. But the playoffs, man, there's so many good storylines. And we had 8 games to cover. We only have 2 tomorrow. So we're going to go real deep on those 2 games tomorrow. What else we got? Jiawei Huang says, shout out to Legs for giving Jalen Wells his flowers on broadcast, Rookie of the Year finalist. You know what? I convinced him, because that's my guy. I'm in his head. I got him appreciating my guys, Jalen Wells. He's fantastic, man. It's a bummer he doesn't get to go. What else we got? Is that it?
Sorry. Shit.
James, what's going on back there, brother? There we go. F. Montano. Oh, nope, it's gone. F. Montano. In the modern NBA, can you name a team that started 2 white guys? What? I think there's a lot of teams that have started 2 white guys in the modern NBA. It's not that. 2 is not that crazy. 3 would be a lot. Oh, 2 white guys. Why are we so messed up here? What are we going? 2 white guys that. You able to help me here, James?
Yeah, sorry about that, Adam. In the modern NBA, can you name a team that started 2 white guys that don't play defense that has won championship?
I mean, that's such a specific thing. I have no idea. But you are, I just say 2 players in general that can't play defense in today's NBA. And I'll quantify today's NBA as like since 2012. Not that it exists before that. But when we're talking about the modern spread out, lots of threes, 5 out or 4 out spacing, defensive rotations and athleticism become so important. So forget white, black, whatever. I don't think teams can survive more than 1 non-defender or negative defender at a time. I think you can get away with 1, especially if you have great players behind you, but I don't think any team can cover for 2 now. And so you look at teams like Denver, you have Jamal Murray, you have Michael Porter, you have Nikola Jokic. They're already at the threshold of that even before you think of anything else. So they're behind the 8 ball. It's why Denver went to Russell Westbrook and why they were effective, is because now you can shrink that. But 2 bad defenders, forget the race. It's just tough. Psycho Blue says, and $10, look at the bright side, Memphis. It was only game 1. Usually blowouts like this are in elimination games. Is that a bright side? I feel like OKC is going to do this again. Maybe not 51 points, but they are so much better than that Memphis team. Disconnected. They were tired. You know, if you want to try to make an excuse to playing games, then you travel to OKC. But to me, this was a great first round matchup for OKC, who's by far the best regular season team in the Western Conference. And they made a statement, man. You have to be impressed with how consistently they executed. They even brought in their reserves, and their reserves executed. This is how impressive they are. Garbage time, let's waste the clock, whatever. Their third string team came in and kept punching. They're such a freaking good program out there. Jay Money says, T-Wolves hoping they play their little bro, Denver. Hey, man, it's true. It's true. That's a team that I think, and I got to give a shout to Mark Campbell, the permanent sub on the show. I think he'll be back on Friday this week. Mark Campbell came into the year and said Denver, or came in like a month ago, and he said, forget the noise. Denver, Minnesota, those two teams are playoff teams, and when you get to the playoffs, they're going to look better. And I thought it was crazy because he was talking two teams that just did not look like they have it. Minnesota looks absolutely like a playoff, like they are better in the playoffs than they are the regular season. And I am very curious for game 2 there because my gut tells me that Minnesota won't shoot that well, but they'll replicate the defense in a lot of ways. And that series should get very, very interesting. All right, hit that outro music. Everybody, we appreciate you guys tuning in and checking out the show. If you're new to it, make sure you're subscribed. Also, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. The All-NBA Show with Tim Legler and Adam Mares. That way, if you're on the go, if you're in your car, every car has that like Spotify button that just pulls it up automatically. Or you can even voice activate, say, hey, if you set this up, play All-NBA Show, and you can listen to it on your drive-in wherever you are. We're a little bit later in the day than most shows. Most shows are in your inbox at 6 a.m. We're a midday show, but that allows us to go a little bit deeper into the details, rewatch the key games, and we hope you guys enjoy us for it. Hit that like button on the way out, everybody. We're back tomorrow, me and Legs. We'll see you then.
Silly like the mayor.